After defying the High Council of the Veiled Kin, Lila was cast out of the Silver Spire. She had spoken against their silence, against their refusal to help other worlds burning in the dark. For that, they called her reckless. For that, they stripped her of her starlight essence and hurled her through the void like a stone from a sling. Her body tumbled through cold space, wrapped in a failing containment shell, her silver eyes dimming with every passing light year. She did not scream. She only watched the stars blur into streaks, then fade. When she hit the atmosphere, it was like fire meeting ice. Her shell cracked open over the Pacific Northwest, scattering shards of pale crystal across the treetops. She fell through branches, tearing her cloak, bruising her limbs until she landed in a bed of moss and frost near a frozen creek. Snow began to fall softly, dusting her pale skin and tangled silver hair. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The cold bit deep, but worse was the emptiness inside. Her connection to the weave, the ancient energy that flowed through all veiled kin, was gone. Severed. She was alone. For 2 days she lay there, too weak to move, watching the sky shift from gray to black and back again. Animals avoided her. Birds fell silent when she stirred. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. On the third morning, footsteps crunched through the snow. Lila tried to hide, but her body would not obey. A woman appeared at the edge of the clearing, bundled in a thick coat, boots caked with mud and ice. Her name was Claire. She worked the forest trails alone, checking traps, clearing fallen limbs, watching over the land with quiet care. Claire stopped dead when she saw Lila. She did not shout. She did not run. She simply knelt a few feet away, eyes wide but calm. Lila expected fear, maybe anger. Instead, Claire reached into her pack and pulled out a thermos. She unscrewed the cap and held it out. Steam curled into the air. Hot tea. Lila stared at it like it was a miracle. "You look like you've been through hell," Claire said softly. Lila did not answer. She could not speak the human tongue yet, but something in Claire's voice, the lack of demand, the absence of threat, made her reach out. Her fingers trembled as she took the thermos. The warmth spread through her chest, the first real heat she had felt since exile. Claire helped her stand. Lila swayed, but Claire held her steady. They walked slowly back to a small cabin tucked between tall pines. Smoke curled from the chimney. Inside it was simple. A wood stove, a cot, shelves lined with books and jars of dried herbs. Claire gave her dry clothes, soft flannel and wool, and wrapped her in a quilt stitched with forest scenes. Lila sat by the fire, silent, watching the flames. Over the next few days, Claire asked no questions. She brought food, stew, bread, fruit, and left it on the table. She mended Lila's torn cloak without being asked. She played old records on a battered turntable, filling the cabin with soft piano and distant voices. Lila began to understand words. Not all, but enough. She learned Claire lived alone by choice, that she liked the quiet, that she had lost someone long ago and never wanted to lose anyone again. Lila, in turn, began to heal. Her silver eyes brightened slightly. Her skin lost its ashen tone. She still carried a deep sadness, but it no longer choked her. One night, as rain tapped on the roof, Lila spoke her first human words. "Thank you." Claire looked up from her book. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. "You're welcome." But peace did not last. Lila kept something hidden beneath the floorboards. A smooth obsidian egg no bigger than her palm. It pulsed faintly like a slow heartbeat. She had carried it through exile, wrapped in star-forged cloth. It was the last of its kind. A dragon egg, born not of fire and scale as humans imagined, but of condensed void energy and ancient Siltheran will. Her people had long bonded with such creatures, but the council had outlawed their creation centuries ago, calling them too dangerous. Lila had saved this one in secret. Now in the warmth of the cabin, the egg stirred. Tiny cracks appeared along its surface. Lila stayed up all night watching it, her hands hovering just above, ready to catch the life within. Meanwhile, strange things began to happen in the forest. Deer fled the area without reason. Birds abandoned their nests. The creek ran backward for an hour one morning, then returned to normal. Claire noticed, of course. She checked her instruments, barometric pressure, magnetic fields, and found nothing. But Lila knew. The egg's energy was leaking, and it was calling to something. Far away, in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, sensors blinked red. Energy signature detected. Non-terrestrial origin. Classification unknown. Priority high. A team was assembled. They called themselves the Global Defense Initiative, but they answered to no nation. They hunted anomalies, and now they had a trail. Back at the cabin, Lila felt the shift in the air, a pressure building like a storm that never broke. She knew they would come. Humans always sought what they did not understand, and when they found her, they would not see a girl. They would see a weapon, or a specimen. She looked at Claire, sleeping peacefully in the other room. She thought of the kindness offered without condition, the quiet strength in those steady hands. For the first time since her fall, Lila felt something other than loss. She felt protectiveness. She tucked the egg closer to her chest. "Ember," she whispered, naming it in the old tongue. "Stay quiet. Stay safe." Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall again, thick and heavy as if the earth itself wanted to hide them. But Lila knew hiding would not last. The world beyond the trees was already moving, and soon the silence would shatter. For now, though, there was warmth. There was tea. There was a human who looked at her not with fear, but with care. And in that fragile moment, Lila allowed herself to rest, just for a little while. Weeks passed in the quiet rhythm of the forest. Lila grew stronger. She helped Claire gather firewood, mend fences, and check the trail cameras scattered through the woods. She spoke more now, her words careful but clear. She learned the names of trees, birds, and stars as humans saw them. Claire never pressed her for her past. She simply accepted Lila as she was, a girl with silver eyes and strange grace who seemed to understand the wind better than most. Beneath the cabin floor, the egg pulsed steadily. Lila checked on it every night, whispering old lullabies in the Siltheran tongue. One evening, as a storm rolled in from the coast, the shell cracked open with a soft hiss. A tiny head emerged, slick and dark, eyes glowing like embers in a dying fire. It was no bigger than a house cat. Its scales black as midnight but shimmering with faint violet undertones. It chirped weakly, and Lila cradled it close. "Meet Ember," she told Claire the next morning. Claire knelt beside the small creature, eyes wide but calm. It blinked up at her, then sneezed a puff of warm smoke. Claire laughed, a rare, bright sound, and gently stroked its head. Ember leaned into her touch, purring like a kitten. From that day on, Ember became part of their lives. He followed Lila everywhere, curled up on her lap while she read or napped in the sun on the porch. He ate scraps of cooked meat and drank from a shallow bowl Claire filled with fresh creek water. But he was no ordinary animal. Sometimes, when Lila hummed the old songs, Ember's scales would shimmer and the air around him would ripple like heat-off stone. Once, when a bear wandered too close to the cabin, Ember let out a low growl and the bear turned and fled without looking back. Claire noticed these things but said little. She trusted Lila. And she trusted the quiet intelligence in Ember's glowing eyes. But the world beyond the trees was not so patient. Far to the east, in a steel-walled command center buried under granite, analysts pored over satellite images and sensor logs. The energy spike from the forest had not been a glitch. It had repeated, stronger each time. Thermal scans showed an unexplained heat source near Claire's cabin. Drone footage revealed a second life form, small, winged, unknown. They called it Anomaly Theta 7. And they wanted it contained. A team was dispatched under the cover of a federal wildlife survey. 3 agents arrived in unmarked trucks dressed in field gear, carrying equipment that looked scientific but hummed with hidden power. They set up base 2 miles from the cabin, claiming they were tracking invasive species. Claire saw them while checking her eastern traps. She nodded politely when they waved, but her eyes narrowed. She knew that look. The 2 calm voices, the way their eyes scanned the tree line like soldiers. That night, she told Lila. "They're not here for wolves," Claire said, stirring stew on the stove. They watched the cabin, not the woods. Lila went still. She looked toward the floorboard where Ember slept. Her hands tightened. "They will take him," she said softly, "or worse." Claire set down her spoon. "What do we do? Leave," Lila said. "But not yet. Ember is still weak. He cannot fly far." "Then we buy time," Claire replied. The next morning, Claire drove into town and returned with extra supplies. Batteries, dried food, medical kits. She also brought back an old radio scanner, the kind used by hikers and storm chasers. That night, they listened. The agents spoke in coded bursts, but some words came through clearly. Subject confirmed. Non-human. Possible bioweapon. Prepare extraction protocol. Lila's face went pale. Claire turned off the scanner and sat beside her. "They don't understand," Claire said, "but we can't let them find out by cutting him open." "No," Lila whispered. "They must never touch him." Over the next few days, they prepared. Lila packed her few belongings, including the star-forged cloth and a small knife made of Siltheran crystal. Claire filled backpacks with essentials and hid fuel cans along a trail leading deep into the mountains. Ember stayed close, sensing the tension. He no longer played in the yard. He watched the road, his tail twitching at every distant engine sound. Then, one afternoon, a drone appeared over the treetops, small, silent, with a red lens that glinted in the sun. Lila saw it first. She pulled Ember inside and closed the shutters. Claire grabbed binoculars and watched as the drone circled, then hovered directly above the cabin. "They know," Claire said. Lila nodded. "We go tonight, but night never came for them." Just after dusk, headlights cut through the trees. 2 trucks rolled to a stop at the end of the driveway. Men in dark uniforms stepped out, not wearing badges, not announcing themselves. They moved with precision, fanning out around the cabin. Claire grabbed the shotgun from above the door. Lila stood in the center of the room, Ember coiled at her feet, his eyes blazing. "They won't shoot," Claire said. "Not yet, they want us alive," but Lila knew better. She stepped to the window and raised her hand. The air thickened. The ground trembled slightly. The agents froze, confused. Then with a sharp gesture, Lila twisted her fingers. Gravity bent. One agent dropped to his knees, gasping. Another stumbled backward as if pulled by an invisible rope. The drone above sputtered and crashed into a pine. The effect lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Lila grabbed Claire's arm. "Run!" They burst out the back door into the snow. Ember leapt onto Lila's shoulder, claws digging gently into her coat. They ran through the woods, following a deer trail Claire knew by heart. Behind them, shouts echoed. Flashlights cut through the trees. They didn't stop until they reached a hidden cave behind a waterfall, frozen solid for the winter. Inside it was dry and cold, but safe. Claire leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Lila listened. No footsteps. Not yet. "What was that back there?" Claire asked, voice low. "A piece of what I used to be," Lila said. "It is fading." "I cannot do it again." Claire nodded. "Then we keep moving." At dawn, they followed the river north. Ember stayed quiet, his wings tucked tight. By midday, they reached an old ranger outpost, long abandoned. Inside, Claire found a map and a rusted key. She pointed to a red mark deep in the Cascade Range. "There's something here," she said. "My grandfather marked it. Said it was a place the land remembers." Lila studied the symbol. Her breath caught. It was a Siltheran rune, one of protection, one of warning. They walked for 2 more days, avoiding roads, sleeping under tarps, eating trail rations. Ember grew stronger. One night he stretched his wings for the first time. Thin membranes veined with silver, strong despite their size. He hovered for a moment, then landed on a rock. Proud. "He will fly soon," Lila said. "Good," Claire replied. "We might need that." Finally, they reached the marked spot, a narrow valley surrounded by jagged peaks. In the center stood a stone arch half buried in snow, covered in moss. The rune glowed faintly when Lila touched it. She pressed her palm to the stone and the ground shook. Snow slid from the arch, revealing carvings older than human history. "It is a beacon," Lila whispered, "left by exiles like me." She activated it with a drop of her blood. Light shot into the sky, silent and bright. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice echoed, not in sound, but in their minds. "Lila of the Veiled Kin. You have awakened the last echo." A ghostly figure appeared, a tall elf woman with eyes like galaxies. Lila fell to her knees. "Master Alara, you were cast out for compassion," the figure said. "But compassion is not weakness. It is the first law of the weave." "What do I do?" Lila asked. "The council has sent a reaper," Alara said. "It follows your trail. It will not stop until you are returned or erased. But you are not alone. The earth remembers those who came before. Awaken the guardians." The projection faded. The arch dimmed. But the ground beneath them trembled again, deeper this time. Far away in the heart of the mountains, something ancient stirred. Claire looked at Lila. "Guardian stone titans," Lila said. "Asleep since the ice came. Now they wake." And the reaper Lila's face hardened. "It will come soon." Ember growled softly, smoke curling from his nostrils. Claire placed a hand on Lila's shoulder. "Then we meet at ready." They did not sleep that night. They stood watch under the stars, 2 women and a dragon waiting for the sky to tear open. The sky did not tear open all at once. It began with silence. Birds stopped singing. The wind died. Even the snow seemed to hold its breath. Then came the hum, a low, deep vibration that made teeth ache and bones tremble. Claire clutched her ears. Lila stood rigid, eyes fixed on the horizon. Ember crouched low, wings spread slightly, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "It is here," Lila said. "Above the peaks." The clouds twisted, not from wind but from something forcing its way through. A shape emerged, sleek, black, longer than a bus, with wings like blades of folded night. It had no eyes, no mouth, only smooth armor that drank the light. The Reaper hovered silent and still, scanning the valley below. Claire grabbed Lila's arm. "What do we do? Do not wait," Lila replied. They ran toward the stone arch, hoping its energy might offer cover. But the Reaper moved faster. A beam of violet light lanced down, striking the ground just behind them. Rock melted into glass. The heat washed over their backs like an open furnace. Ember screeched and launched himself into the air, small but fierce, breathing a stream of blue-white flame at the machine. The Reaper turned. A second beam shot out, not at Ember but at the arch. Stone exploded. Ancient carvings turned to dust. Lila cried out as if struck herself. That arch was her last link to her people. Now it was gone. But the destruction woke something deeper. Far below, the earth groaned, then cracked. Massive hands of stone broke through the snow. Fingers as wide as tree trunks, arms thick with moss and time. One titan rose near the river, shaking off centuries of ice. Another emerged from the mountainside, its face carved by wind and rain into something both human and wild. They moved slowly, confused, roaring with voices like grinding boulders. The Reaper shifted its focus. It fired sonic pulses at the titans, waves of force meant to shatter bone and mind. One titan stumbled, cracks spreading across its chest, but the other swung a massive arm, catching the Reaper mid-air. Metal screeched. The machine tumbled, crashing into a ridge. For a moment there was quiet. Then the Reaper rose again, undamaged, hovering higher. It began to charge a larger beam, one meant to erase everything in the valley. "We have to stop it," Claire said. "How?" Lila whispered. "I have no power left. Ember is too young. The titans do not know friend from foe." Claire looked at the chaos, the titans swaying, the Reaper glowing brighter, snow melting into steam. Then she saw it. The melted rock from the first blast still pulsed with residual energy, and the titans. They were reacting to the Reaper's frequency, but also to something else, to presence, to will. She turned to Lila. "You said the weave is about connection, right?" Lila nodded slowly. "Then connect," Claire said. "Not to the stars. To us, to the earth." To me, Lila stared at her. "It is not how it works, maybe not for your people," Claire said. "But you are here now. And this world listens." Lila hesitated. Then she closed her eyes. She reached not upward but downward, into the soil, into the roots, into the slow heartbeat of the sleeping giants. She thought of Claire's hands mending her cloak, of Ember's warmth on cold nights, of the quiet strength in human kindness. She poured that feeling into the weave. Not starlight, but something new, something earthborn. The titans stilled, their glowing eyes turned toward her. One knelt, placing a massive hand flat on the ground before her. Lila stepped onto it. The titan rose, lifting her high above the valley. Ember circled above, sensing the shift. The Reaper locked onto her. Its beam flared to full power. "Now," Lila said. The titan threw her. She flew through the air, arms outstretched, not with magic, but with trust. Ember dove beside her, flames trailing. As the Reaper fired, Lila twisted mid-air and slammed her palms onto its hull. At the same moment, Ember struck its underbelly with a concentrated blast of void fire. The Reaper shuddered. Its beam veered off, carving a trench through the mountain instead of the valley. Smoke poured from its joints. It tried to retreat, but the titans moved as one, grabbing its wings, pinning it to the earth. Lila landed lightly on its back, pressing her forehead to the cold metal. "I am not your enemy," she whispered into its core, "and neither is this world." For the first time, the Reaper hesitated. Its systems flickered. It had been built to obey, to hunt, to erase. But this act of mercy was not in its code. Its internal logic fractured. Lights dimmed. The hum faded. It powered down. Silence returned, heavier than before. Snow began to fall again, covering the scorched earth, the broken stone, the still form of the Reaper. The titan stood guard, watching. Ember landed on Lila's shoulder, exhausted but proud. Claire ran to them, breathless. "You did it." "We did it," Lila corrected softly. They approached the Reaper. It lay like a fallen bird, harmless now. Lila placed a hand on its side. Faint pulses answered, weak but alive. It was not destroyed. It was changed. What now? Claire asked. We cannot leave it, Leela said. And we cannot stay. They will send more. Then we go deeper, Claire said. Into the wild places, where no maps reach. Lila nodded. But first we help the Titans return to sleep. They were not meant to wake in this age. Together, they guided the stone giants back to their resting places. Leela sang an old lullaby, one of grounding and peace. The Titans sank slowly into the earth, their forms blending back into rock and root. By dawn, the valley looked almost untouched, except for the scar of melted stone and the silent machine half buried in snow. They gathered their few supplies. Ember curled in Lila's pack, too tired to fly. Claire shouldered her rifle, though she doubted she would need it again. They walked west toward the coast where fog and forest could hide them. As they left, Lila looked back once. The Reaper lay still, but she felt its presence. A quiet hum beneath the snow, waiting. Not as a threat, but as a question. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the High Council would soon realize their hunter had gone silent. They would send another, or come themselves. But for now, there was only the trail ahead, the weight of a small dragon on her back, and a human who had taught her that strength could be gentle. They walked into the mist, two exiles of different kinds, bound not by blood or origin but by choice, and the earth held its breath behind them, watching, waiting, remembering. Weeks passed as Lila, Claire, and Ember moved west through the coastal ranges. They avoided towns, stayed in abandoned cabins, and slept under thick canopies where satellites could not see. Ember grew quickly, his wings now strong enough to carry small game or scout ahead. He no longer needed to ride in Lila's pack. Instead, he flew silent loops above the treetops, his violet eyes scanning for danger. Claire taught Lila how to read, human weather patterns, how to trap fish without hurting the stream, how to listen to the land in ways that did not need starlight. In return, Lila showed Claire how to sense energy flows, how to calm animals with a hum, how to find clean water by the way moss grew on stone. They did not speak much, but their silence was full, not empty. One evening as they camped near a sea cliff, they saw lights far below. Not campfires, but city lights stretching along the coast. Claire pointed to a dark shape in the harbor. That is Fort Miara, she said. Used to be a naval base. Now it is a research hub. They test things there, things they do not tell anyone about. Lila watched the lights. Something about them felt wrong. Not like the Reaper's hum, but colder, sharper, like metal pretending to be alive. They moved on before dawn, but the feeling stayed. Days later, they found a cave behind a waterfall, its entrance hidden by ferns. Inside it was dry and wide with a small pool fed by the falls. It felt safe. For the first time in weeks, they rested without watches. Ember curled on a sunlit rock. Claire mended her boots. Lila sat by the pool, staring at her reflection. Her silver eyes were brighter now, not with starlight, but with something else, something human. That night, the sky turned red, not from fire, but from a pulse, a silent wave that made the water in the pool ripple upward. Ember shrieked and dove behind Lila. Claire grabbed her rifle and ran to the cave mouth. In the distance over the ocean, a ship hung in the air. Not a plane, not a drone. It was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and black, with no windows, no lights. It pulsed again, and this time the trees bent away from it as if bowing. The council, Lila whispered. They found us. Claire loaded a round into the chamber. What do they want me, Lila said, or proof I am gone? Ember growled low in his throat. His scales darkened to near black. We cannot fight that, Claire said. No, Lila agreed, but we can choose how this ends. She walked out of the cave into the open. Claire followed. Ember flew above them, circling like a shadow. The ship descended slowly, hovering just above the treetops. A ramp opened at its base. No soldiers came out. No weapons fired. Instead, a voice echoed, not through air, but inside their heads. Lila of Silthera. You are summoned. I am not going back, Lila said aloud. You broke the silence. You awakened forbidden life. You defied the weave. Return or be unmade. Lila stepped forward. I did not break the weave. I expanded it. You fear change. That is your weakness. The ship hummed louder. The ground shook. Then from its belly a new shape emerged. Not a reaper this time. Something worse. A memory wraith. It looked like Lila but twisted. Its eyes were hollow, its skin cracked with black veins. It floated without moving its limbs. It carried no weapon. It did not need one. Its presence alone made Claire stagger. Memories flooded her mind. Her brother's funeral, the day she lost her dog, the loneliness that followed her for years. The wraith fed on regret. Ember tried to breathe fire, but the flames died before they reached it. Lila raised her hands, but her power flickered. The wraith was made from her own past, her own exile. It knew her better than she knew herself. "You do not belong here," the wraith whispered in Lila's voice. "You never did." Claire fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Lila reached for her, but the wraith moved between them. "Let her go," it said. "She's human. Fragile. You will only hurt her more." For a moment, Lila hesitated. Doubt crept in. Maybe the wraith was right. Maybe she was a danger. Maybe Earth would be safer without her. Then Claire looked up. Her eyes were red but clear. She reached out a shaking hand. "Lila, do not listen to it. That is not you. That is their fear wearing your face." Lila blinked. She looked at Claire, at the woman who had given her shelter food trust, who had stood beside her when the world turned against them, who had never once asked for anything in return, and she understood. The wraith was not her past. It was the Council's version of her past, shaped by control, not truth. Lila turned to the wraith. "You are not me." She did not attack. She did not scream. She simply stepped forward and placed her hand on its chest, and she forgave it. The wraith shuddered. Its hollow eyes widened. Forgiveness was not in its design. It had no defense against it. Cracks spread across its form. Light poured out. With a final sigh, it dissolved into mist. The ship above them shuddered. Alarms blared inside its hull, silent to human ears but clear to Lila. The Council had not expected this. They had built weapons for war, not for compassion. The ramp began to close. The ship rose. "You have changed," the voice said, "but change is chaos. Chaos must be contained." "Then contain yourselves," Lila said. "I will not be your warning. I will be your future." The ship vanished into the clouds, leaving only silence. Claire stood slowly. Ember landed beside her, nuzzling her hand. She looked at Lila. "What? No," Lila smiled faintly. "Now we protect what we have built." They returned to the cave, but they knew they could not stay. The Council would not send another wraith. They would come themselves, or worse, they would turn Earth against them by revealing their presence to human governments. "We need allies," Claire said the next morning. "Not soldiers." People who understand. Lila nodded. "But who would believe us?" Claire thought for a long time. Then she remembered an old contact, a woman named Maya who ran a sanctuary for rescued animals deep in the Olympic Peninsula. Maya had once worked with Claire on a wolf relocation project. She was quiet, smart, and did not trust governments. She might listen, Claire said. They traveled for 3 days. Maya's sanctuary was hidden in a green valley surrounded by mist. Wooden fences held deer, foxes, and birds that had been injured or abandoned. Maya herself was in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She took one look at Lila and Ember and did not flinch. "So you are the reason the satellites have been acting strange," she said. Claire nodded. "We need a place to stay, and someone who will not ask too many questions." Maya studied Lila. "You are not from here, are you, no?" Lila said. Maya's eyes softened. "Neither am I." "Not really." She let them stay in a small cabin near the back pasture. Ember made friends with a one-eyed raven who followed him everywhere. Lila helped care for injured owls using her knowledge of energy to speed their healing. Claire worked on the fences and taught Maya how to spot surveillance drones. Weeks turned into months. Word began to spread, not through news but through whispers. Travelers spoke of a silver-eyed woman who could calm storms, of a black dragon that guarded lost hikers, of a place where broken things found peace. The Council did not return, but Lila knew they were watching. Waiting, and she was ready. Not with weapons, not with war, but with a choice to stay, to protect, to belong. Spring came late that year. Snow melted slowly in the high valleys and the rivers ran full and cold. At Maya's sanctuary, the cherry trees bloomed early, their pink petals drifting over the pastures like soft rain. Ember loved to chase them, snapping at the air with playful growls while the one-eyed raven cawed from the fence post. Lila stood by the garden watching Claire plant seeds in neat rows. Her hands were dirty, her sleeves rolled up. She moved with a calm rhythm that matched the land. Lila no longer felt like a stranger here. The forest knew her name now. The wind carried it. The animals did not flee when she passed. Maya approached with 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to Lila and nodded toward the sky. "They have not come back," she said. "No," Lila replied, "but they are still watching." "From orbit or from dreams?" Maya asked. "Both," Lila said. Maya sipped her tea. "Then you will stay?" "Yes," Lila said. "This is my home now." It was not a grand declaration. It was quiet, certain, like the roots of an old tree. Over the next few months, Lila began to teach, not in a classroom but in the way of the land. She showed Maya how to read the energy in plants, how to tell when an animal was sick, before it showed signs. She taught Claire how to weave protective patterns into fences using simple stones and intention. Ember learned to guard not with fire but with presence, standing watch over lost hikers, guiding them back with soft chirps and wing gestures. Word spread further. People came not with weapons or questions but with offerings, a basket of bread, a hand-carved flute, a child's drawing of a silver-eyed woman and her dragon. Lila accepted them all with quiet thanks. She never asked for anything. She only gave. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, a young woman arrived at the gate. She looked tired. Her boots worn, her eyes full of worry. She carried a small box wrapped in cloth. "My name is Nora," she said. "I heard you help things that are broken." Lila nodded. "Come in." Nora sat by the fire that night and told her story. She had been part of a government project studying anomalous energy. She had seen files about Lila, about the Reaper, about the Wraith. She had tried to speak up but was silenced. Now she was running. She brought data, proof of secret labs' plans to capture and dissect non-human life. "I did not know where else to go," she said. "You are safe here," Lila told her. Nora stayed. She helped build a hidden library beneath the barn where they stored her files. She taught Claire how to scramble signals, how to detect surveillance. In return, Lila showed her how to listen to the earth, how to find peace. Years passed. The sanctuary grew. More came. Scientists who refused to weaponize the unknown, artists who dreamed of other worlds, healers who believed in more than medicine. They built a quiet network, not of war but of care. Lila never led it. She simply lived it, and others followed. Ember grew to the size of a small horse, his wings spanning wide enough to shade the garden. He no longer needed to hide. People saw him and felt not fear but awe. Children left him berries. Elders told stories of the black dragon who carried lost souls home. Claire aged slowly, her hair turning silver like the bark of winter birch. She walked with a cane now, but her eyes were sharp and kind. She and Lila sat on the porch every evening watching the stars. They did not speak much. They did not need to. One night Claire said, "I never thought I would see something like this. A world that chooses kindness over control." Lila looked at her. "You helped build it." "No," Claire said. "You showed us it was possible." Far above in the silent dark, the High Council watched. Their ships lingered at the edge of the system. They sent no more hunters, no more wraiths. They had seen what happened when Lila was met with cruelty. Now they saw what happened when she was met with trust. And they did not understand it. But they feared it less. Silthera fell not with a bang but with a whisper. Its people faded into myth, their spires crumbling into dust. The weave did not die. It changed. And Lila became its new voice, not in the stars but in the soil. On the day Claire passed, she was sitting in her favorite chair under the cherry tree. Ember lay beside her head, resting on her lap. Lila held her hand. There were no tears, only peace. Afterward, Lila walked to the highest ridge. She looked out over the valley, the rivers, the distant sea. Ember circled above his wings, catching the last light. "You will stay," a voice said behind her. Lila turned. Nora stood there, older now but steady. "Yes," Lila said. "I promised her I would." Nora nodded. "Then we will keep the promise with you." Lila smiled. It was not the smile of an exile. It was the smile of someone who had found where she belonged. In the years that followed, travelers spoke of a silver-eyed woman who walked the forests and mountains, sometimes alone, sometimes with a great black dragon whose eyes held the memory of stars. They said she healed the sick, guided the lost, and never asked for thanks. They said she was not human, but she loved humans deeply. And in quiet moments when the wind was still and the moon hung low, Lila would sit by Claire's stone and hum the old lullabies. Ember would curl beside her, purring like thunder, and the earth would sigh in return. Home was not a place in the sky. It was a choice made every day, and Lila had made hers.